So last time we handled error handling, and now we need to actually play the game. So the first thing we really need to play the game is 100 boxes full of 100 random numbers between 1 and 100. So box 1 may have 24 again. Box 2 may have number 97. Box 3 may have the number 1. Box 4 could have 4 in it for all we care. The idea is that each number appears once, scattered across 100 boxes. Now, you might be concerned, oh no, 100 boxes. Do I have to make like 100 variables to store all this? I can come down here and say, all right, well, in my run function, let's initialize the game and box 1 equals, sum 2 and box 2 equals 5. And you're like, wait a minute, hold on. I need these to actually be random numbers too, right? Like this can't be just hard coded as 2. So I'm going to have to, come up with a random function again. And how do I make sure that the random number function doesn't reuse numbers? And all these questions start to come up. So thankfully, computers give us an easier way to do all of this. It's something called an array, and it is a good way of storing lists. So let's learn about arrays. Now, in fairness, when I say lists, I mean just lists of things in the generic sense. In computer science, list has a technical meaning that is different from array, but in JavaScript, people often can talk about them interchangeably. Just realize when I say list, I mean just a list of things. I'm not using that term technically right now, and it doesn't really matter in JavaScript anyway, unless you're designing data structures. So an array, a list, I'm going to use them interchangeably right now. People can scream at me if they want. Right now, let's just create one and see what it looks like. So I'm going to delete my 2 custom boxes here. Don't need those. And instead, what I really want to do here is say, let boxes equals create random boxes. Right? I want to call some function that I'm going to write. I haven't written it yet, called create random boxes, and just have it magically make up 100 random boxes of, with random numbers inside them. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to make this function. Function create random boxes. And then I'm just going to say let boxes equal, let's just do something really basic. I'm just going to create a list of 3 elements. So notice what I've done here. I said let boxes equal, and instead of just saying, 5 or 12 or whatever, I used the square brackets. That's how I create an array in JavaScript. This says create an array of 3 things. You'll notice every element is comma separated. I've created an array with the number 5 in the first position, 12 in the second position, and 3 in the third position. So be it. Now I'm going to return boxes. So remember what this is doing. Down here, when you click the run button, whoops, sorry about this. You call the create random boxes function right here. I'm going to see if I can get this on the screen at the same time. So this thing right here. And it's going to take whatever is returned and shove it in the boxes variable here. So we call create random boxes. The computer jumps up here to this code and says, okay, let boxes equals 5, 12, 3, and then just return that variable, which has those 3 numbers in it. So that's an array. Let's just log this to the console and see what we've accomplished, if anything, so far. Console.log boxes, and I can put, boxes in front of this just so we feel comfortable with what's actually getting printed there. I'm going to open my console up, clear that, and then click run. Yay! So the boxes, notice it says object array. It's an array with 3 things in it, and it has the numbers 5, 12, and 3. Notice this 3 has nothing to do with this 3. If I go up here and change this to a 4, and then click run again, you'll notice 5, 12, and 4 are the elements. It's still length 3. There's 3 elements in it. So far, so good. I can, of course, add more things in here, like 12 again. Why not? -3, 6. Who knows what's going on here? Oh, actually, I'll not use 6 because there's 6 elements in this thing, so I'll do 8 just to make sure it's a different number. And then I'll clear this again just so it's clean. So, yep, there's my numbers. Nothing fancy really going on here. 5, 12, 4, 12 again, -3, 8. This is not Obviously, -3 and a second 12 are not what we want for our random boxes. Again, notice the length is 6. So this is just a convenient way to store a whole list of things. Could be numbers. It could even be strings with quotes around them, like apple and banana and cherry. That's totally fine too. JavaScript arrays don't even care if you mix the types. So, enjoy that if you so wish, although that can be very confusing. So often you'll want the same kind of thing in each spot in the array just to make dealing with it in code a little easier. Anyway, so all that said and done, not horribly useful yet. You're like, okay, great. I have these things. I still am going to have to type out 100 numbers. This, got me down to one variable. Thank you very much. But I still have to type out a bunch of numbers. That's crazy. Well, no, we're not going to have to do that, thankfully. Because one of the really cool things we can do is we can actually dynamically add elements to this array. So watch this. Boxes.push. Now this is weird. I'm going to push something onto the end of the boxes variable. That's how I can add things to an array in JavaScript. So I'm going to add the number 10 on the end here. And let's see what that does when I hit run. Ooh, notice the 10 was added to the end of it. And now there is, we have 7 things in there now. Yay. Okay. So that actually could be useful. One strategy I could do to make a random list of 100 boxes with numbers between 1 and 100 is actually just push the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 100 into this list one by one inside of a for loop. We learned about for loops last time. We're going to review them again here just very briefly. But the idea is if I just push all the numbers 1 through 100, they're going to be in order. But what if I just randomly permute them after that? I can have a separate function that does that. And voila, I'm going to have the numbers 1 through 100 kind of all mixed together. So let's do that first part right now. Let's clear out these hard-coded numbers. I start off with an empty list, and that is actually totally okay, or an empty array. There is 0 elements in this thing. And if I remove my push for a second, and I click run after it refreshes, notice it is an empty list with 0 elements in it. It can handle that. It's okay. So now I write a for loop to push numbers in one at a time. So for, and here's the, if you remember the syntax, let I equals 0, I is less than 100, I plus plus. Again, I plus plus means I equals I plus 1. It is shorthand notation. That is totally fine. So what this says is, here's our review of for loops. Start with I equals 0. And at the beginning of every loop, so basically at the beginning of checking whether I should run the code that's going to be in here, tell me, is I less than 100? If it is, go through and do the curly brace stuff. If not, jump out of the for loop to the next line, which in this case would be return boxes. So this is called the loop condition. It just means, tell me if I should still be doing this loop or not. I have to end at some point, right? So this says, while I is less than 100, keep going. And then this is, what do I do at the end of the loop, right? This is check something at the beginning to make sure I should run this thing. This is, at the end of the loop, do this before doing the check again. So this says I plus plus, which again is the same as I equals I plus 1. Yeah, you'll remember from last time, the shorthand notation, there was 3 ways to do this. I equals I plus 1 just means take whatever's in variable I, add 1 to it, and shove it right back in I. So if I was 7, 7 plus 1 is 8, 8 back in I, good to go. So that just makes I go up by 1. There was a shorthand notation for this, which is I plus equals 1. That just means I equals I plus 1 all over again. People just got bored of writing the variable twice, and so they came up with this weird notation, which looks strange, but works. It's identical. And then people were like, you know what? I'm tired of it. Writing this even. If I'm going to add by 1, and it only works for 1, I plus plus means that. If you want to do plus equals 2, then you have to use this notation, or I equals I plus 2. There is no plus plus notation for adding 2 to a number, unless you wanted to try to do I++ and then I++ again or something like that. But anyway, don't do that. Yeah, so in this case, I++, very common to see that. Now, some people are a little weirded out. We talked about this a little bit last time, but to finish up the review, it would be totally okay and identical in this case for us to do let I equals 1 and I less than or equal to 100. This seems more natural to a lot of people who start counting at 1. It's very common in computers for us to start counting at 0 for ancient historical reasons. Well, ancient being like, 1950s or 60s or something. But like, it doesn't matter in this case at all, whether we count from 1 to 100, or in this case, from 0 to 99, which is still 100 numbers, by the way, right? Because once I becomes 100, 100 is not less than 100. And therefore, it will never run this code when I equals 100. It'll stop. The last time it'll run will be 99, and then it will stop. Okay, so this loop in either form, 1 to less than or equal 100 or 0 less than 100, will run this curly brace section 100 times. That's what this is going to do. And so what do I want to do 100 times? Well, I want to say boxes.push the number, right? If I go from I equals 0 to I less than 100, I have to push I plus 1. I want boxes 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up through 100. This is one reason why it's actually slightly nicer to just say I equals 1, I is less than or equal to 100, and then I just push I. Because now it starts at 1, I push 1, push 2, push 3, push 4. So in this case, I'm going to do that. So again, recap, we are making a list of 100 things. We start at 1. Every time we start the loop, we're like, is that number I less than or equal to 100? Then I can keep going and do this. So the first time I run through, I is 1. I push a 1 into the boxes list. Then I jump to the end of the loop, come back here, add 1 to I, so now it's 2. Check the condition, 2 is less than or equal to 100. Check, which means run the curly brace stuff. So now I push a 2 on the end. And then I run to the end of that. Go here. I is now 3 instead of 2. I jump back here. I is still less than or equal to 100 because 3 is less than or equal to 100. Run the curly brace stuff. Boxes.push 3. And you go forward all the way to I equals 100. 100 is still less than or equal to 100 because it is equal. So you run the curly braces, you push 100, you go here. I plus plus means now I is 101. 101 is definitely not less than or equal to 100. And therefore we jump down here and return the boxes list. So let's see what happens. Click run. And wow, I have a boxes list of size 100. And look at that beautiful series of numbers all the way up to 100. That's exactly what I wanted to start with before I permute everything, which just means shuffle it, right? I just want to change the order of all these things in some kind of random way to make sure that we're playing the game right. The idea was that the student IDs are mixed throughout all the boxes, not in order 1 through 100, or else this would be a very easy game. So next, let's do exactly that shuffle, and then we're going to have a good starting position for our game. Now, one real quick thing to fix. Notice I've hard-coded 100 here, but I wanted the number of students to actually be, configurable by here. So you'll notice that if I change this to 50 and click run, it still produces 100 boxes with 100 numbers. That's not quite what I wanted. So what I really want is to pass in the number of boxes I want right here. So I'm just going to make a variable called num and replace this 100 with num. That way, if num is 50, it'll only go from 1 to 50. It'll push 50 different numbers. As this loop runs 50 times, it'll return that. So I'm going to scroll down here and pass in my number of students variable that I already have. Num students. And now this should fix things just fine. When I click run, notice it does 100 boxes still. But if I change this to 50 and click run, notice now I get an array of 50. size 50. And there's only 50 numbers in this box. I don't even have to scroll anymore. So yay, that actually worked as desired. And I'll clear this now so that I don't need to see all this anymore. So now let's do our shuffle.